My name is Kate. I'm 33. I work as a doctor and I'm single. So this is all starting to sound a little bit like the intro to my internet dating profile, but hopefully there'll be less chat today about my favourite TV programmes and hobbies. Although I have had housemates at different times in the last few years, I was living on my own at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I have been during each of the subsequent lockdowns. And today I'd like to share a bit of my story of how God has been faithful to me over the last year. As for many of us, my life looked very different before COVID-19 came along. I am very much an extrovert. I love spending time with people. My diary was often full. And if I was at home, you could usually find me having a cup of tea or a glass of wine and a meal with family or friends. So when there was talk of a national lockdown, I was really worried. The idea that I wouldn't be able to see anyone outside of work for weeks on end was totally alien to me. I realised how much I depended on company and spending time with friends to keep me going, to help me process my worries and to have fun with. And on top of this, I work in the NHS. I just started a new job, and every news bulletin I heard and every work email I opened told me this was going to be one of the most challenging times of my working life. My usual ways of handling a tough day were being taken away, and I was feeling really anxious about spending days on end in my own company and worried about how I would cope with the stress. So I sat down one day to tell God that I couldn't do it and what was he going to do about it. And I was reminded of this verse from the Bible that has got me through many challenges in the past. It's from the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9. Joshua had been given the huge task of taking God's people into the land he promised them. Joshua knew he would face challenges and a lot was unknown, but God said this to him. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. I wasn't going to be on my own. God was going to be there with me every minute of every day. I realised I was spending time afraid of being lonely, but I was scared of something that might never happen. God commanded me not to fear, and not in an angry way where he was telling me off or he was cross that I was scared, but in a loving way where he reminded me that I didn't need to be afraid because he is faithful. And over the coming weeks and months, he reminded me of so many of his promises in the Bible. When I got COVID and was worried about being sick in the middle of the night, he reminded me that in Psalm 121, he promises to watch over me as I sleep and that he would never leave me. When I felt woefully inadequate to face the challenges of work in the middle of a pandemic, he showed me that in my weakness, he is strong and that in him I lack nothing. When I was sad, he brought comfort and promised to be close. And when I was struggling to make decisions in lockdown on my own, he promised that he would guide me in paths of righteousness and that also there'd be grace when I got it wrong. And his faithfulness to these promises not only kept me going during lockdown, but it helped me to trust him in new ways. It taught me to rely on him rather than what I thought I could do on my own. And it helped me to learn to enjoy his company. He's brought me times of joy and laughter, even in the current circumstances. There's been a lot of singing and dancing in my kitchen. Sunday night, you can usually find me batch cooking while I sing my way through a musical. I've done Les Mis, Hamilton, The Lion King, very open to other suggestions. I've done some solo furniture moving. I've made a lot of sourdough. And I even got stuck under a Christmas tree as I tried to put it up on my own. And don't get me wrong, it hasn't all been easy. And there have been times that have been hard. Times when I've missed family and friends. Times when I've wanted a hug or to have a cup of tea or just needed a good cry with someone. But so often God has provided for me through you, my wonderful church family. We believe that being Christians makes us God's children, part of one family and one body. I used to love meeting together on Sundays, doing city group in person, hanging out as a youth group, and I've missed all of that and I look forward to when we can do it again in the future. This has been such a support to me over the years, knowing there are people I can spend time with when I'm needing company, knowing that I can turn up to church on a Sunday and get a hug from someone or pray with a friend about the week ahead and the challenges we might face, And it's really helped getting to spend time as part of people's families when I don't have children of my own. If you told me that I wouldn't have any of that for the best part of a year, I would have been worried about how lonely I would have felt. But through lockdown, God has shown me that even if we can't be together physically, we can still be church, the people of God. We can still be family to one another, even if it looks different. For many of us, suddenly having to isolate meant that we needed help from others. And when I was isolating, I was so blessed that people from church did a food shop for me or topped up my paracetamol supplies. Bank holiday weekends were made much easier by friends bringing round a roast dinner for Easter Sunday or dropping an afternoon tea off for VE Day so I didn't feel on my own. Standing on people's doorsteps while their kids brought their latest toy or their new bit of artwork that they'd done to show me meant I felt part of family. And friends ringing to check I was okay or praying together via FaceTime about things we were struggling with meant that it felt like we were still going through this together and trying to see what God is teaching us through it. Doing communion together via a video call or praying via Zoom meant we still could spend time in God's presence together. We may not have been able to physically meet, but it didn't stop God using us as brothers and sisters to help provide for what we need, whether that was physical, emotional, or spiritual. So if you are part of City Church, thank you for all that you have done to be family to one another and support one another during these times. I am sure there is still room for us to grow in this, and we need to remember these lessons that God has taught us, so let's keep reaching out to do this for one another and doing life together, even if it has to be at a distance for a while still. And whether you're just checking us out or you've known God for years, we believe in a God who is faithful to his promises, and that this can make the biggest difference to our lives. Let's keep encouraging one another in this. Since COVID-19 has had such a big impact on our lives, God has always been there, gently reminding me that I do not need to be afraid, because he will never leave me and will be with me wherever I go, even if at the moment that's just my house.